Oh,
Yeah.
we're in our
So-
pseudo pajamas.
Interview number one.
Boom! Hi.
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Drew Rausch.
I'm Melissa Sanchez. And
This is Scout.
And we are removing this because it's not aesthetic. What's the latest?
Aaron did a couple episodes of a show called Longmire.
Yeah.
It was on I think it started on AMC or A&E or TNT.
I think TNT maybe?
There was definitely an acronym involved.
Okay.
Definitely an abbreviation of some sort. But then it got picked up by Netflix, and I got to do a couple episodes of that. I got to do the last two episodes of that.
That's awesome.
Around the same time, I did an episode of a show called Night Shift on NBC. It's no longer around. And the last few months, I've been doing a bunch of really small projects like this, like real labors of love, sort of, because everybody out here now, the industry, as you know, because you have done this as well, the industry has shifted to this place where you don't, nobody wants just actors anymore. They want, Mitch Hedberg used to tell this joke. He said, that's like if you go up to a chef and you're like, that's great, you're a chef, you can cook. Can you farm? Yeah,
right.
You know, and that's sort of the state of where we are in this industry, trying to break through and trying to make something happen. Is that they don't just want a person who can acquit themselves well as an actor, as an artist, but you also got to come along with all your Twitter followers and your built-in audience and the show that you created and all this other stuff. So. There's a long way of getting around the fact that I've been working a lot for free for people who are making their own web series right now. It's called Synth. Okay. It is an independent pilot. That's what I'm going to work on right after I'm done here. It is an independent pilot written by Taylor and Dash. Taylor Hamilton is directing it and helping produce it. David Haley's helping produce it. He's a friend of mine. And I am one of the series regulars on it. That's what I'm working on right now. It looks fantastic.
Cool. So you brought that in lab, right?
I did. Thing? That is exactly that thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Awesome.
I'm having a very good time doing it.
Yeah, so for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, Lab is a community of artists. We get together on a regular basis to hash out the craft because we love what we do, and that's actually part of the foundation and inspiration for this film. Yay! It's just like at some point, right, you make a leap.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to ask you about that and how, what was that for you to be like, I need to trust myself that I can take a step forward in my career or make a shift. I'm interested to hear about that whole journey.
It was long overdue, I guess, because it had been, I was very fortunate. I was working fairly regularly and making enough money, and very fortunate that I have a wife who has a very steady job and can sort of count on her dough and her that we can as a couple count on that income, and then know that the work that I get is there's sort of a baseline of how much I have to make, and anything after that is just sort of supplementary gravy. Yeah. So I had been making enough money, been getting enough work for a few years prior to that, and finally decided this is it. And it was right before Christmas of 2014, 2013, something like that.
I feel like time.
It just goes.
I can't.
It goes. Yeah. It's been 3 or 4 years, at least, and we had a big fun ceremony where we burnt the work clothes and the bartender apron and all that stuff in the fireplace, which was very rewarding. But I decided to do it because I'd been to that point for a little while, and I'd actually not been trusting myself for a while before that. Yeah. And then finally decided, okay, I just got to do this. It starts to be, after so many years of doing it, and you really realize how much it weighs on the rest of your life.
Totally.
When you're at work until 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And what happens when you've got an audition the next day? And even if you're like on your best behavior and you take care of yourself really well, it doesn't matter when you don't fall asleep until 3 or 4 in the morning for an 11 a.m. appointment. You're not in optimal shape. So there was that benefit of it, taking everything a little more seriously. Not more seriously, because I'd always been taking it very seriously, but just being a little better prepared, better rested, and more focused on that appointment that you're talking about the next morning. And then there's also the incredible benefit that we didn't even anticipate for how much it made our relationship better, because here's Jamie, who has a day job, and she's there from 10 to 6, 9 to 5, whatever, every day. And she basically gets done with work the time I go to work, so we never see each other unless she comes into the bar to have a drink or whatever.
Right.
And then I'm at work until 2 or 3 in the morning, so I see her as she's already asleep, and I kiss her and I crawl in bed with her, and then she's up and gone before I'm even awake. So we never even saw each other. So once I quit working in the bars, it was revelatory for both of us in our relationship. Like, holy moly, it's fun to see you. Oh, I remember that I like you now, so let's hang out more. So after that, it just wasn't even an option. I mean, I had a really bad year, like a year and a half ago, where I didn't book any. I booked like one commercial in a period of about 12 months. And
hashtag been there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a reality of it. Is it sometimes you're gonna have too many jobs, you're not gonna be able to work them all, and other times you're not gonna be able to get arrested. And during that period of time, there was a dialogue back and forth, constant dialogue back and forth between Jamie and myself. Jamie's my wife. Jamie's also a casting director, so she can understand all of this stuff.
Jamie's awesome.
She said, no, you're not going to go back and do it, because it wasn't, it was such a tax on a relationship that we don't want to go back there. She said, you know what, I go to work and I make money. We can pay all of our bills. We got money in the bank. Right. We're fine. Don't go back to putting yourself through that. Right. So I haven't.
That's great.
Yeah. And sometimes it has been great, and other times it's been like, wow, really wish I had more to do. But in those times, then you just reach out to friends. You find a project like yours. You find a project like Synth, this independent pilot I'm on. You find something to work on that's artistically fulfilling and keeps you busy and keeps all the muscles in shape, and is a project that you're inspired by and feels like you're producing something and putting something out there and something that you're excited to get behind.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like there's always the whole grass is always greener scenario, right? Because you're working in either a job that's like sucking all your time, and you're like, I want to be spending more time on my craft and like what I love, and then when you let that go and that's all you do, you're like, I have all this time and no motivation or like whatever that is. Yeah. And it's like, and then it's like, I want to be busier. It's just, I just find that an interesting conversation.
It is, and the thing that I always come back to is if it were, if it was something that was a little bit more objectively quantifiable, if it was, the thing, a huge component of this career that we've chosen is that it's a subjective field, it's a creative field. There's, the good and bad isn't as clear as like ones and zeros. It's not a binary sort of thing. There's this whole spectrum of quality to consider. With sports, for example, like you end up at the end of a game with a winner and a loser. Right. You end up with statistics, with numbers, with things, with quantifiable things to point to and say like good, bad, mediocre, winner, loser, whatever. Right. And in order to improve those outcomes as an athlete, the answer is simple. It's practice, it's training, it's reworking these things that are your professional tools. And despite the fact that we don't have nearly as concrete an outcome as artists, it's so important to be on the same road to improvement. Right. You always got to be working. You always got to be, stretching those. I referred to them as muscles a second ago. But all those little things that go into what it is that we do as professionals, we have to be constantly familiar with. if you want to be a good basketball player, you don't get to take practice off. You don't get to
Right.
just show up at games and be good.
Right.
You got to be constantly practicing.
Right.
It's 8 hours. It's 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, whether you've got a job or not.
Right. Yeah, and it's also like not even just practicing like material or whatever, but it's such a, like a mindset game and a like physical wellness game and a like I think it's like all aspects of ourselves, right? Like
Yeah.
spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Like we have to kind of continue to improve or like tap in or refine or yeah.
Yeah, there's all of that. That's all sort of, you know, the artistry of it, the musicality of it, the subtlety of it, the nuance, the inspiration of it, and then there's also just like simple dumb technical stuff that you got to be used to doing. And I mean, you wrote the cool little project that you had. This was years ago when you were writing, like, you know, the novice's guide to on-set terms or whatever you were doing.
Yeah.
Like there's just some
the,
stuff
the
that
working
you don't know.
actors
Yeah.
on-set handbook, which
Yeah.
thanks for that prompt.
You're welcome. No,
I'll share it.
It's great because the first time that you show up, like I remember the first time that I got here, I had a job. I came out from Chicago as a theater actor. I knew nothing about what it was to be on camera, and actually spent years absolutely tying myself in knots trying to figure out what you needed to do as a theater actor versus a film actor, and what the difference was. It's not that much of a difference. You still do all the same work. Sometimes your performance is just a little bit more, I don't know, smaller is a word, fit inside the box. It's just a little bit more technically pointed, I guess. You're not talking to the back row of the theater.
You're having a conversation as
conversation.
opposed to like having a conversation.
As opposed to letting that person know you're having a conversation. But simple stuff like knowing how to hit a mark, knowing how to stay open to camera the way that you would stay open to an audience, you know, understanding what looks the best on camera, understanding any number of things that you just need to be technically aware of when you're on set. And even that's the sort of stuff that you gotta get better at, you gotta practice, you gotta watch stuff like the Michael Caine. His I couldn't remember his name. I couldn't remember his name until I said it like he says it. The Michael Caine, I'm sure you've seen it, the little YouTube video that he's got from decades ago about acting for the camera,
right.
and about, you know, the way to stay open to camera and to pick a focus point just to the side of camera and try and keep your eyes open to that at all times, because the most important thing that the camera wants to see is your eyes and what's going on in your eyes. You know, stuff like that, constantly learning, constantly improving the way that you do things as a professional, because we're professionals, we're expected to be able to acquit ourselves at a moment's notice. It's not like you go, oh my goodness. It's not like you go to a mechanic and you let him just mess around and figure out what's wrong and hope he ends up being right. He better know what he's doing in the first place.
Time out!
I think it is just what I was talking about before this, and again, why I'm so impressed with what you and Wes did with this film, and what you continue to do with RV and all these other projects that you're working on, is this new expectation where actors aren't just actors anymore. Obviously, there are a lot of people that get to just be actors, but such a large component of how you establish a brand in this industry now has become what you are generating as a whole, like the sort of content you're creating.
What is one thing that you want to let go of?
Oh, wow. Yeah, right. We scribbled down on some paper and dropped into a bowl. One thing that I would like to let go of is the knot in the middle of my upper back. That's a literal thing. Something figurative, more metaphorical that I would like to let go of.
I hear you. That points to some stress.
I don't know. Maybe some self-awareness. Maybe some self-consciousness. Maybe some. Not even maybe, for sure. Like that sort of outside of yourself eye that you always have looking on yourself, that wants to try and judge you or tell you what will or won't look good, and creates a little bit of hesitation. Instead of doing that, just, you know, thinking like, screw it, just doing it, just
Cool.
full speed ahead.
Awesome.
There you go.